in recent years, there has been a significant increase in the number of asylum applications declared inadmissible by Luxembourg. And most of these applications are lodged by individuals who already have refugee status in Greece and are therefore ordered to return there. The issue is that in reality, however, recognized refugees are not necessarily always in a better position than asylum seekers. International protection doesn't automatically translate into actual protection. And that's why this assumption that the lives of migrants miraculously turn for the better once they are granted refugee status needs to be challenged. For these reasons that we as Passerell felt it was really important to publish this report now, like documenting the situation of recognized refugees in Greece. In the case of MSS versus Belgium and Greece, it was held that the living conditions of asylum seekers in Greece were so bad that sending them back to Greece from other EU member states would violate their human rights. And specifically, the court found a violation of Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits inhuman or degrading treatment. So if the dire living conditions of asylum seekers can be held to amount to inhuman or degrading treatment and their returns to Greece prevented, then surely the same can apply also to recognized refugees and their conditions. And indeed, it's true that several international and national courts have already held that the living conditions of recognized refugees in Greece are also so bad that they are capable of amounting to inhuman or degrading treatment and therefore prevent their returns to Greece. And in practice, there are many obstacles recognized refugees encounter when attempting to exercise their rights in Greece. For example, a tax identification number, which is called AFIMI, is a necessary precondition for access to nearly all the social rights that are considered in the report, including housing, employment, healthcare, and social welfare. However, in order to obtain it, you need proof of address. But if you're homeless, then how can you get proof of address? So this means that if you're homeless and unable to obtain a tax identification number, you will also be unable to access many other social rights in Greece, including housing, quite ironically. So essentially, these requirements often constitute a very vicious cycle that is hard to get out of. So most recognized refugees in Greece who cannot afford to rent a place themselves are left homeless or living under otherwise deplorable conditions in camps or abandoned buildings or informally rented overcrowded apartments. Many of these places don't have electricity or running water or toilets. Recognized refugees in Greece are extremely unlikely to find employment. And those few who do manage to find a job are usually employed in the informal economy, which deprives them of any social security and exposes them to a heightened risk of exploitation and often very poor working conditions. So based on all of these findings of the report, it is clear that access of recognized refugees to various social rights and therefore protection in Greece is far from guaranteed. And therefore, recognized refugees who are returned to Greece from other EU member states face a real and concrete risk of homelessness and destitution. They are likely to find themselves in a state of such extreme material deprivation that it would seriously harm their physical and mental well-being and would not allow them to even meet their most basic needs. And this is a situation that is incompatible with human dignity and capable of amounting to inhuman or degrading treatment under international human rights law. So EU member states that take the decision to return a recognized refugee to Greece not only expose that individual to a grave risk of fundamental rights violations, but also risk committing a violation of these rights themselves by transferring the individual. And so it's for these reasons that we as Passerell urged the authorities of each EU member state, Luxembourg included, to carefully consider and give sufficient weight to the risk a recognized refugee might face if transferred to Greece before an inadmissibility decision and removal order are issued. And more specifically, we recommend a threefold approach to determining whether an individual can be returned to Greece. So the first step of this approach is an assessment of the general living conditions of recognized refugees in Greece. So this means that states must examine whether access to social rights and adequate protection are generally ensured by Greece. So based on the findings of this report, they are not. But even if authorities reached a different conclusion, they would have to then carry out the second step of the approach, which is an assessment of the individual circumstances of each specific case. So this means that states need to consider the personal factors that may increase a person's vulnerability and likelihood of being exposed to degrading living conditions, such as age, gender, disabilities, medical conditions, previous trauma, etc. And if no vulnerability increasing factors are identified, then the state must still, under the third step of the approach, obtain assurances from the Greek authorities that the people that are about to be returned would be received in a way that is compatible with their fundamental rights and human dignity. And then only if all of these three steps are satisfied, then theoretically you could return a person.